So we got 3 stories instead of 4 because there's going to be 3 of us. We got Joe. Oh, shit. Joe's in the house. Oh, boy. All right.
What's up, Joe?
We got Joe. So let's talk about Joe. So first off, Crab outdid you, Joe. When it came to this article, Crab, he nailed it. So this is, you never go full shit. So this is what we're doing here. But I had to pay homage. And this was Joe's, and I was gonna go with this one, and then Crab. Yeah, Crab got it beat. Crab people. Right. So Crab people is he won out tonight on that one, and we'll go back to our first article, which is from a friend of the show. Most of you know him as Crying Grim. Some of you know him on
an incredible name.
Yeah, some of you know him on, and that was his Twitter handle. Some of you know him on Telegram as Pericarditis. Yes, pericarditis. Yeah, they're very funny. And on Substack, he is Rich Slutsky, and his Substack is Counterspin, Lies, Damn Lies, and Spin. He's been doing this for a while. And so he wrote this article about the public square, and I thought it was really interesting because I'm a Substack fan. He is also
really.
We
would have never guessed.
I've never talked about it, and I've never showcased it.
Not
never
once.
done anything with it whatsoever. But he wrote this article about what?
You can Substack, bro? Do you even
Substack, bro? Like, all right. So if you click on the 3 dots, you can cross-post this to your audience, by the way. Put a little note and send this to any one of the Substacks that you control. And I will be doing that because this is a really good article that I think every one of the people that subscribes to my newsletter should read. So what he's talking about is why Substack is stupid to make all the same mistakes of its ideological predecessors, and why getting uppity with me or anyone else won't fix that problem. So this is an interesting little drama that happened. It's what's playing out on a larger scale, and that's why I wanted to bring it.
And look at that Gutenberg.
That is. So he's talking
got
about
that whole Gutenberg Model 9 Gutenberg.
That's the early printing press. That's correct. The Gutenberg. So the printing press, he says, Rich, was a marvelous invention, wasn't it? Clean, properly spaced text on demand, easily replicable with minimal tooling and knowledge required. All you realistically needed to do was typesetting, cranking, handing out of dictum. It was one of the few technological inventions to genuinely deserve the title revolutionary, for as much as we hear that word thrown around meaninglessly in Silicon Valley these days. So,
speaking of Silicon Valley, there is an incredible museum there in San Fran where it's like of printing and like bookbinding. Very good. You should check that out. They probably have that printing press there.
I'll bet they do. So,
but you also said dictum, FYI. Very funny.
Actually, Rich wrote dictum. He might have written it just so that I wrote it. Just so that I had to say it. And he's probably watching now, or he's going to watch on clip. But, so book transcription and publication, let alone translation, would take years, perhaps one's entire life, before the invention of such a machine. Yet, just 550 years later, the personal computer had already unseated it and made it largely irrelevant. The internet, global commerce, digital media, photography and art, 3D rendering and sculpting, music, and perhaps most importantly, instantaneous bidirectional text, voice and video telephony, communications, iMessage, Facebook. That stupid email from your HR lady that you forgot to reply to, and now you can't bring your fiancé to the company picnic. Modern life is pretty marvelous, I admit. For as many gigabytes fill our drives and terabytes that we transfer person to person and for personal edification. And it's funny, I did a whole thing on notes, and we were posting our screenshots of our inboxes just to see who won and who had the most unread messages in their inbox. I think Brooke Hines won. She had about 96,000. I think it was about 96,000 for Brooke. Yes, it was Brooke who decided. So it can be a hazard, both physical and moral. It can be used for moral and good. It can be used benevolently or with indifference, and it can be used for nefarious, and of course, it can be used for personal gain at all costs and any expense. Much like the printing press and handing out copies of your dictum, nihil sol sub novum Latin, there is nothing new under the sun. All right. So in this piece, which I'm counting here, he's counting as a follow-up to his stack published this time last year, which was Lies, Damn Lies, and Subterfuge. He links that there, and I'll link this in the description afterwards. Where he noted that
sub novum.
He noted that a Substack, thank you, a Substack employee was either wittingly or unwittingly repeating nonsensical denialism regarding fascist organizing, both in the citizenry and military ranks in the Ukrainian state. So now he'd like to tie that together with the year since, i.e. the events I think were notable here on Substack, the direction I see Substack ultimately taking in the years to come, why that matters to you, the end user, or I roll Substack reader, the person reading this. What he's lamenting there is the word Substack reader. That's what Substack is focusing on as the people who consume the content on Substack. They're calling them readers.
Readers. Yeah.
I would call them subscribers. I would call them fans. I would call them more than readers because they do more than reading.
I mean, it's like classically with the articles. I understand that because like that's what you're doing. You're reading. Right. You know, that's like classic article speak. You know.
Sure.
You know, riddle me this, reader.
So
like that kind of nonsense.
Yeah, Rich wants to note that he's not a Substack employee, investor, or contractor of any kind. He has no business dealings beyond having a Substack.
Likely story.
Right, which is hosted there for free, gratis. With my very many thanks to the Substack team for what I see is nothing but a pleasant experience. Even the iOS app is up to par now. I have nothing but good things to say for more than a year now, and I'm thankful for the time and space to say the things I'm genuinely permitted to say here. Which is so sad that he even has to say that, but that's true. He says, I have social and speech freedoms here that are unrivaled by any other social media platform, and I cannot call enough attention to that. The fact that I feel comfortable enough to write this piece without fear of retaliation beyond maybe a snarky comment is remarkable. Please don't abuse my trust. And he's speaking to the people at Substack there. Please take this as a constructive, not destructive. I want nothing more than to see this platform succeed in a way Mastodon or Tumblr could never, and I want to see that, and I want that success to cement it as a market leader. But to do that, this is the headquarters for Substack. This is 111 Sutter Street, Wired for Sound. So he says, well, before we do that, Colin, I know you've done a little bit with Substack. What's been your experience using the platform? Have you looked at notes at all? Have you?
I really don't use Substack that much other than for a moment. You encouraging Reef and I to, share our clips and live streams there. And then, obviously when we did our article on Chris Smalls last year, obviously that's what we used.
Right.
In order to share the load and write that article. I probably would use it a lot more, to be quite honest, but I think just with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, like it's a lot. And it's like one extra thing that you have to think about in terms of, and we do have a community that knows of who we are due to Substack, but I just don't think of it because you guys know I am very active on Twitter. That's probably the social media platform I use the most.
Yep.
It's just a lot to think of all those other things in addition to Substack as well.
Hell yeah. It's a lot of time and a lot of, look, platform whack-a-mole, I'm with you. It's absorbing to, you have to, and again, you're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's a lot on TikTok. That's a lot to manage on its own. I feel
right.
you.
Right. But I think really the other thing is, I think people know it mostly now as more or less blogging or like articles, especially for journalists who are able to, they have a platform where they're able to do that. I don't think it's really a social media base that people are not really privy to, at least yet. So I don't right now. It's not quick and instantaneous like Instagram or Twitter, which I'll argue Instagram is more focused on pictures, and Twitter is kind of focused more on words. I think Substack is definitely a lot larger than Twitter in that respect, but I also kind of associate Substack as people who write on a regular basis, which I don't. I will write something of quality when I have to, but I generally don't. So I think that's kind of where Substack is not really as prolific compared to the other, because it's not, I wouldn't say it's easy, but I think it's definitely more of you being a writer. That is what I kind of consider it useful, and not everyone really likes writing in a way of writing like a blog post or an article or something like that. I think that's what it's mostly known for, that. And yes, there are other features on Substack that you can use it for, but I don't think those are as popular on the platform as yet.
Yep. No, look, most of what I do, I don't do writing nearly as much as embedding a video and sending it out to an audience. And I know you guys can do that, but and I push everyone to doing that, and I do it for everyone. And like every week when I'm doing these updates, I've got INN News in there. So even though you're not doing it yourself, you're on there anyway. So that's cool. So, but what happened with here on Substack on notes and what's been happening is, first of all, I've been talking about this, but access to the founders and to the people that build this thing, to the head of product, to the CEO, to the COO, and they're listening on notes and they're building out, publicly, and listening to the user base and trying to adapt and build based on what they want, which is really cool. So what Rich is talking about is that when you have a business, you need the basics. So 7th floor office in Belden Place, cubicles, drones, copy machines, coffee machines, etc. Right, but you also need things like coffee, vision, courage, and respect.
Coffee.
Respect. We're coming from Jersey here. All right.
RESPCT.
So in his recent Substack post, the Active Voice episode with Hamish McKenzie, he featured the brand featured Taylor Lorenz of internet and corporate media fame, presented her as a serious intellectual and writer with authority. It reduced her harassment. It reduced her harassment and doxing of people to mere controversies on notes, and largely glossed over them, painting her in a very pleasant and not at all harsh light. This is a person who was fired, accountability, from a 6-figure media career with a large corporate establishment due to her antics. So this is to put aside by many other questionable behaviors online from her very recent past, including role reversal and self-victimization, something psychological and emotionally abusive people do to abuse other people. So I wasn't even really that familiar. I know people talk about Taylor Lorenz. Like, what did she do exactly? If you remember, so here's what she did. She doxed the Libs of TikTok creator, and this is the New York Post from. Yep.
And then she went on the news like after that, being like, "I'm the victim." Yeah, I remember this.
Yep. So this was last April. All right. So broke down in tears on MSNBC, published an article, got fired, started a Substack. Apparently, it's not doing that great. But getting back to the article, so Hamish features her in a podcast because she's somewhat of a name, and he's going to explain kind of why. But so absolute shameful. One would think. What kind of vision does this portray to the likely investor? What courage does it take to feature someone who already had a globe-spanning platform and blew it spectacularly? what kind of respect does it show to the grassroots who have supported the website and have far more intellectual and writing clout to feature someone of that ilk before them? What does it say to the user base when the staff don't take this criticism on the chin, but instead lash out at the user base, going so far as to single out responses and use schoolyard ad hominem nonsense in order to deflect from the criticism? Is that a brand that's going places? And specifically, is that place the shitter brought to you by Pfizer? And hopefully not, because it's been one of the places that you could actually question Pfizer. And it's one of the most prominent places where I find people questioning and posting Pfizer and anti-big pharma science and the science of the testing and questioning what happened with COVID all the time. So I don't really see it from that angle, interviewing and platforming at Taylor Lorenz. I have my own angle on why, but I want to get through this and then we can talk about like kind of where this is, not just in relation to Substack, but all the platforms and who they seem to be pushing, amplifying. And it's happening over on Twitter. I mean, we know this guy Mario apparently has been like kind of buying followers or something. So, and amplifying himself.
It's a me.
Yeah, it's a me. Yeah, that's right. So you've got an old clip from internet. The internet is by no means short of good communications platforms with awful, questionable, or just plain dumb corporate teams. One only needs to take a short drive away from Sutter Street to the Meta campus or walk from there to Cupertino or Mountain View. That's headquarters, by the way, for Facebook, Meta, and Cupertino is Apple, Mountain View is Google, or Alphabet now. See the end results of such terrible mistakes from the street level. In the case of Meta, it speaks to lack of vision. Facebook and Instagram started with ambivalent intentions, connecting people. After a while, it became about monopolizing that user's information. And the brand soon after lost vision, consuming Oculus and finding itself in the metaverse quagmire, a place it's not even its own employees want to be. Giggity. Right? The lifestyle company, as Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger once called them, faces a similar vision issue. That's Apple he's talking about. But that's more about the cost and complexity of the damn thing. Their real problem, even for being the company with the biggest market cap in human history ever, remains a company that is too sure of itself and stuck in its ways. It has no humble. $3 trillion market cap at last check, per our brother Angel Rivera, who's probably in the chat as well. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Go ahead and look at the iPhone range from the last 7 years and tell me about iterative, even if it's is the best selling thing out there. It literally is pretty much the same device. It's just they've been upgrading the software better. Mountain View was so obsessed with turning a dime and increasing revenue that it would gladly sell your grandmother to Raytheon as cheap labor if it could legally do so. It has no issue doing legally spurious things in order to profiteer and monopolize. Hell, let's go back to the Substack offices and just go down the hall to Turo, the company that lets you rent your car, yes, your car, to someone else. I hope we all know why that's a bad idea, just in theory. I know why that's a bad idea. Letting a stranger drive your car on some third-party weird insurance. And I believe Turo, is that the one that was only silver Audi A4s? One of them is only silver Audi A4s, if I remember correctly.
I have no idea what that is.
One of the rental car companies, like you can get anything you want as long as it's silver Audi A4.
Okay.
Kind of like the old Henry Ford. So in the past month since the Substack WeFund round and other funding ventures in Q1,
it lets you rent your car to someone else. Gotcha.
Right. Exactly. Kind of
that's
like
dumb, but
yes.
Yeah.
Well, the idea is it sits in my driveway for 90% of the time, but I don't drive it. Mm-hmm.
It's like, what's that? The hotel thing where you can stay in the room that I have loads of boxes in and a mattress.
Like Airbnb?
That's it. Yep.
right?
Like I've got a shed out back. I'm going to put it on Airbnb, you know?
Right. So the company that Rich feels has struck a decidedly different tone to the one it held when he arrived in January 2022, or perhaps it became more bold in one that it was otherwise reserved about. As mentioned, I took exception with the podcast with Taylor Lorenz, but I also have concerns that run much deeper and all stem from the same place. So I don't know this meme, but apparently it needs no accreditation, according to him, the no bitches meme. I don't know this one. You guys?
Oh,
me neither. He says, again, Substack is but a budding brand, still finding its voice. It lacks the brand cachet of a Tumblr, a Twitter, or a Reddit. Websites that have been established for untold decades, even though those come with their own baggage and problems. You won't see "Find us on Substack" written on your breakfast cereal, but you might see the Twitter logo. You don't see many brands here, though you'll find some people who work for various businesses and so-called nonprofits, quote unquote, representing their interests. You'll find their brand on Reddit and Twitter and maybe even Tumblr if they're like Wendy's and they're a little edgy. Why do brands do this? Well, in the hope of enticing new patronage. They want to expand the user base because it's profitable to use that as leverage to market to others and entice funding. Why do I mention this? Well, the website is clearly in an awkward period where it's too small to really monetize, but too notable to allow it to remain in the Wild West, as some call it. In order to grow the base, the orthodoxy must be followed, and speech must not be curtailed, must not just be curtailed, but the conversation steered in a specific direction. Again, I take umbrage with that, and we're going to talk about that. But this is Rich's take and opinion and his perspective on this. That unfortunately, as Twitter learned, the only people who care about this preordained neoliberal gospel are the already wealthy, types like Ms. Lorenz, their few sycophants, some bots the wealthy few paid for, and a crowd of opposition. So, unless the traffic Substack is hoping to gain is the user base storming into the thread to point and laugh and call attention to the wrongdoings she did to others, which doesn't seem to grow the user base in any way. It doesn't appear that Ms. Lorenz brought any considerable audience with her, given her own Substack has less traffic than another of my least favorite people, Robert Reich. Yeah, right? So I'm not sure prominently featuring her was the draw that the team was hoping for. So he's wondering, like, why, right? And I'm wondering that too. And he says backfired spectacularly. And yes, a week or so ago, there was a joke going around about a Substackified dating site. I actually called it Only Stacks with 3 X's for writers to connect. Before that, we had the introduction of Substack Notes, a platform I enjoy but can't help but feel is merely cribbing the olden days of Twitter with some UI tweaks. And that's 2012 to 15, like when it was good. For what it's worth, I genuinely do enjoy this feature and use it a lot. As do I personally. That's Rich saying that, but he and I are very prominent and we're two of the more outspoken independents on the platform that I've found. Anyone who subscribes to this publication will know that we publish far more notes than stacks, and this will likely remain. It's a great sub-platform to expand one's horizons, engage in fair and honest discussion, and level criticism where necessary and praise when due. I would say he levels a lot of criticism, and I love him for it, but he's a big critic out there. He's got opinions, and I love him. So he says, we are not unfair or unkind as the user base, though we can be extremely critical. In the case of a Growing Fluff podcast with Taylor Lorenz, I have yet to see any criticism of the conversation that was unfair or just plain old mean spirits. I saw people pointing to her past behaviors. I saw people making mention of the light and friendly tone from Hamish. I saw people wondering why she was featured at all given the severity of her past. I personally don't mind that she's here on Substack, as I and many others are happy to be. I merely don't understand what about her was meant to be a draw. If anything, this would be toxic to a brand. It makes me wonder if the vision isn't to merely rile people up in any way you can, which is the CNN way, and which, to be frank, sucks Rank Summers' ass through a hose. Yes. Yes, and yes. Totally agree with all that stuff, really. What do you guys think of this so far with Taylor Lorenz and Substack and being featured on a podcast? You know, platforms featuring writers that aren't necessarily in public favor, but with most groups, but with a certain group of people.
Yeah, it just reminds me when Max Blumenthal went to the TrueCon conference where he confronted Rachel Maddow.
Rachel.
Right.
And I think after he got kicked out, I think Rachel said something regarding him, something towards the lines of that Substack
Coming to a
journalist.
Substack near you.
Oh, coming to a Substack near you.
Yeah. So,
I gotta add that to the soundboard. Someone send me that, please and thank you.
So smug.
It also reminds me of recently everyone's favorite nice robot, Lex Friedman, decided to talk to Netanyahu, I think.
Yeah.
Right? And like their argument is kind of this, I believe in the power of conversation and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, there's some people you shouldn't conversate with. Like, they don't have anything worth listening to.
Yep.
You know? So, like, I'm not going to go talk to a person who's literally genociding people. I don't think that what they have to say is, I mean, I know Taylor Lorenz is a bit, you know, not as evil as...
Yeah, she's not genociding
like,
anybody.
Benjamin Netanyahu. Right.
But I feel you.
But I feel like that's the, like, Substack is taking that, like, oh, well, we're willing to have anyone and talk to anyone. And it's like, there is limits to that.
Yeah,
Well,
which I feel like, given Rachel Maddow's comment to Max, it's viewed somewhat as a lesser than platform. Like, it's a nobody platform. Like, if you're not
it's where the crackpots go. Actually, it's worse than a lesser platform. It's where all the crazy people go. It's coming to a crazy person place near you. It's kind of like the new 4chan to them.
It's similar to like Roseanne Barr right now. They're letting say all sorts of things. And when everyone's already written her off as some crazy lady who's on Ambien all the time, you know? So
I just remember her grabbing
similar to
her
how they
crotch.
did with Alex Jones.
She sang the national anthem for the San Diego Padres and then grabbed her crotch and spit like she was a baseball player. And everybody totally did not get the joke. And they thought she was being totally disrespectful to America. And I thought it was great. And she got destroyed for it for years. Oh, it was so bad. Mercilessly.
Well, also at the same time being canceled over everything that she should kind of know better, but you know, whatever. She does it anyway.
Yep, because she also has made a gazillion dollars in her life, you know, with the Roseanne show and doing all the syndication, and that doesn't make what it used to anymore. But that's why, interestingly enough, talking about that, the Hollywood strike that's going on right now supports
SAG writers and all that stuff.
Solidarity with the with everyone that's on strike and all the workers, because we love and support workers, and we're going to talk about workers later. Bert, let's go back to this for a second. Nate Silver, another one, 538 founder. So he left. We know got laid off by. He got let go by Disney, right? Substantially impacted 538. So he just wanted to post that again because he doesn't like Nate Silver, and I don't think a lot of us do. But just as things seem to be going well, often they can end poorly. So what I was going to say was, I don't understand why they need to feature this group of people. And I'm going to talk about exactly why I think they're targeting this group of people after we're done. But just as things seem to be going well, often they can end poorly. It's always such innocuous. It's always such innocuous things. Slow, boring by Matt Iglesias receiving a Substack recommendation recently was also nothing short of disappointing and depressing, though at least the title of the publication neatly describes the writings contained within. Slow, boring, yep. Iglesias was one of the biggest loudmouth neoliberal water-carrying trolls on Twitter from 2015 to 22, and only after things became so obvious with Joe Biden and his administration as to be unable to avoid it, did he have a change of heart and a coming to Jesus moment a la Peter Dow. Okay. Nate Silver of 538 fame was featured as well for his achievements in getting the 2016 election totally wrong and getting fired from ABC Disney. Robert Reich got a special purple check mark because his face turns the same color when someone mentions Donald Trump. It's a veritable, oh God, not them two, of neoliberal fuckwits. And while I welcome having Substacks and being party to this website, I question the judgment of featuring them on Active Voice over far more deserving people. And I think he might mention some of them.
That I agree with.
Yep. Right. So who at Substack is looking at the corporate media lanyard neck loser list and the DNC Services Inc. C- list after 8 years of media and political failure and thinks, yes, this is what's going to drive traffic to our website. It worked so well for Twitter and CNN from 15 to 22. We should give it a go. I want to meet this person and pick their brain for a while, because this is like betting on a horse that already lost, died, and was beaten to death by the betting public. At this point, tying your wagon to that brand is a surefire way to kill your brand and drive away any loyalty to it. Kiss of death, really. So all told, aside from the jokes and cutesy quips and offhand remarks, I'm just eagerly waiting for the content moderation shoe to drop. It would be the last nail in the cradle-sized coffin. That would be the point where we exit this platform and find another space. And I'm shocked that they haven't had the media's goodest boy, Brian Stelter, on the podcast, though I'm fully expecting that too. So that, again, is from our friend Cryin' Grim. So someone asked, so what do you mean that stupid email from your cousin that you forgot to reply to and how you can't bring your company thing? I can't figure out the bridge. So he explains what that means is that you and your cousin work at the same job, but he's in HR and you aren't. I guess this is very personal to him. He says, I reworded that to avoid any confusion, right? So anyway, that's a funny and a good thing. And I wrote this whole discussion out. I wrote this whole discussion and this whole response out, and then I went to look at something and I clicked somewhere and I changed the window and I lost everything I wrote. I wrote like 2 whole paragraphs about stuff. But so here's what I think is going on here. Why is Substack featuring shitlibs? They've been making a play at Twitter and going after Twitter's user base that's exiting the platform, number one. Number two, they're also making a play at people who are looking to start writing and go independent from corporate media. And most of those people, because they're in corporate media, are shitlibs. They have a relatively big name, or they are a household, somewhat known name by some people, rather than someone like you or I or INN who is starting out from scratch.
Well, and the main thing is, and unfortunately, shitlibs bring money. So
it doesn't mean you have to go looking for that.
No, it doesn't mean you have to go looking for that. But I think, unfortunately, and as I say all the time, doing the right thing doesn't pay you. Like, you essentially, depending on what you're doing or what industry you are, you have to somewhat sell out if you want to make yourself viable, unfortunately.
I mean, this all sounds like excuses.
Sort of.
Like, they know that it's wrong, but that they're doing it anyway because blah, blah, blah.
Except that a couple things. First off, why are they not amplifying the writers and creators that have built this platform from the minute that it was created and have grown with it? Now, the purple check means that you have more than 10,000 monthly subscribers, by the way. That's what the purple check is for. So Robert Reich is one of the more prominent names on the platform. I think Judd Legume over at Bean Boy, I think he's an orange check. which means that he's got more than 1,000 or 5,000. So they've now put this tier system in place to tell you who the writers.
If green check's not 420 subs, I'm gonna be pissed off.
Oh, it's definitely not. And
I'm telling you right now.
What if you get your 420 first? Then what happens? Now.
Well, I mean, it's just like, what if you get 10,001? Then what happens? No, it's just, it starts at 420. You get the award. You get the green check at 420. So you hit the next tier.
So Chris is the founder, one of the founders over at Substack.
And Grandmaster.
For some reason, his note is not there. Oh, that's because that's not the right one. This is the guy. So he's over on notes, and I'm trying to find the note where he kind of lashes out. Here it is. So let me go back here real quick. Chris Best is the CEO and co-founder of Substack. And I am a fan, and I really appreciate how he listens, how he engages, and he has responded to every question I've asked him, liked posts where I've tagged him, shared stuff, and again, really appreciate the engagement and the fact that he supports people that are on the platform. I wish that he supported the little guys more publicly, but he said, I'll admit that I'm a bit surprised about how mad a few people got that Hamish had Taylor Lorenz on the active voice. I expected grumbling, e.g. about the Richard Hanania episode, and Richard also has been like convicted, and he's really. But he said, I'm sad to see how widespread the I'm mad you talk to someone I don't like argument has become. It's not that someone I don't like. You're giving a voice and you're establishing legitimacy for someone who has doxed and not been reputable as a writer and as a journalist. So he says, thanks to everyone who jumped in to support the idea that it's interesting to talk to a variety of people, and also to everyone who just skips the episodes they don't enjoy. I'm proud of Hamish and I'm excited for what's next. So that got some responses, let's just say. And here is Richard. I was not surprised either. Richard, and I'll talk about Richard in a little bit. I'm not, I don't remember exactly the story, but I remember that it wasn't good. And I know that our friend cried. You can see that I'm a bit surprised at how they're promoting writers who are already established rather than ones within the community working hard to become established. That's right. That's my biggest contention here. And trying to piggyback. Now they have gone after hard the neoliberal journalist community that was on Twitter and has decided to make an exit for Blue Sky and Post. And I think that this, in the podcast world specifically, because I think that most of us are not really in that podcast world, we do more live streaming than podcasting, though this is a podcast. I think he gets 25 listens a week, whereas we get hundreds to thousands of views on our live streams and clips every week for it. Rich did have a feeling and a response to Chris, and he says, I'm going to be honest, this platform continues to focus on PMC neoliberal ghouls, Reich, Lorenz, and so on. And they aren't adding anything to the discourse here. There's no audience it's playing to. In fact, if anything, it may be losing this brand credibility in the eyes of us who've been skeptical of these horrible people for years. Now, Jordan Schachtel over at The Dossier, which is another Substack that I subscribe to, he had something to say about that here. Maybe it wasn't here. It was over on notes as well. But he's like, oh, I guess they're never going to feature my work. And I can understand why he would feel that way. Substack Notes is a great platform. By the way, this guy, Mills Baker, is awesome. He's the head of design and product. Big fan. He also responds to a lot of stuff. And they're building in public. You know, CJ Hopkins, that's one of the writers I would like to see them feature, for example. Here's Steven Donziger. We're going to talk a little bit about Steven Donziger later. He's going on a tour, folks.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So this is just now what I like about Substack. One of the things with, just like with Twitter, you can following, that's your subscribed. So all the Substacks that I subscribe to, the people who are on notes, that's just the people, the things that they share. And then these are my subscribers, or the people who subscribe to my Substack as well. So Jordan Lee Cantor, who restacked that, thank you so much for subscribing, Jordan. All right, so I think that they're just trying to appeal to a neoliberal writing community that has a mass audience because they think that it's going to attract more people. But I don't see the MSNBC Robert Reich audience as one that's coming to Substack and Substack notes from Facebook.
Right. I don't see that either, because as I said, like, unless I don't see it, I feel like Substack to me is like Twitter on steroids somewhat. And I think what is appealing to those platforms is that, I mean, the exception of TikTok, where you have to take time to kind of create clips or whatever, like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, what's good about them is usually you put a picture or you have a few words of text and that's it. It's relatively quick. Substack, depending on what it is, it's more work.
It can take more time. Yes, it can.
It can take more time. And
It
so
can.
I feel just with that, I don't think, because people want to have it done within a few seconds. And if you can't do that within a few seconds, I don't think it's going to have the same appeal. I think it works well for us in what we do because we use it more as marketing, because I think essentially our clips are essentially the articles, just in more visual format. But most people are
I also think...
Go ahead, Reef.
Well, I was agreeing with you mainly. Most people are not... It's like the little things, right? Like, people are real fickle animals, and if there's like any roadblock to the dopamine that they're trying to get, they're not doing it. Like, even if it's like, I've got to go first, I've got to search Substack. I gotta want to do that because you're gonna have to, because Twitter's not gonna let you see any links of it if you're already on there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you then have to then in a separate location in Substack itself, or you have to go download the app, which is another step.
Right?
Like, there's this notes platform that they're trying to push,
which is great.
Like, supposedly, like, to the 5 people that are on it.
Well, there's more than 5. I mean, Caitlin Johnstone's on it. CJ Hopkins is on it. Matt Taibbi's on it.
Yeah, because they were
on it.
They were already on Substack.
Right. No, it's not.
So
bringing
for them,
new people, it's not bringing new people into Substack.
It's one step.
It's basically
right.
It's Twitter inside Substack, effectively, for Substack writers and people to be able to I've found and connected with so many new people thanks to notes that I wouldn't have ordinarily done otherwise. So it's certain, and it's helped grow my Substack as well. I do see them. I don't like how they're showcasing.
Yeah, I just think it's still too niche. And I don't think it's going to attract the people in a way that Mastodon has, that Blue Sky Social has, because those platforms are easy and more user-friendly to people to use. The idea for Substack generally is, and I think again for us, it works for us because we're able to put up a clip, and have that be essentially our article. Most people are not going to do that, and they're not going to necessarily spend, it's like essentially like a live journal, and even with that, I would argue that it attracted some people. It's not going to have that broad appeal unless Substack is going to design it in that way. But then if you do that, it's just what happened with YouTube. It was more or less where people who were looking to create content were able to do it. And then it became what it is now. It's become more it's become more mainstream. It's become more socialized now. So no, not socialized, but it's basically become more corporate now. So you know, so many YouTube creators, not even in the space, but just generally complain of how restricted they feel in terms of the content that they can create, just due to all like this, you know, is a lot more strict now. Whereas back, you know, basically like in the early 2010s when it started, you know, like it was a lot more freeform and a lot more variety and a lot less restrictions of what you're able to do. So I get the argument here, and I'm not sure if you can make it a happy medium necessarily where it can be more user friendly without changing the vibe of Substack. So yeah.
Dr. Nick,
it's tricky.
Dr. Nick is asking who's their target audience, and the truth is that Substack is just literally like a vehicle for anyone that wants to create a Substack. So Aaron Brockovich and Popular Information have Substacks, but also Mark Crispin Miller and tlib, the Last American Vagabond. The Convo Couch has a Substack, and we've gotten Hardlens to open up a Substack. Caitlin Johnstone that's one of the main platforms that she writes and publishes on, but she also embeds her SoundCloud, and you can also watch the YouTube video right on the Substack. That's the idea is that I look at Substack more as like a WordPress type of publishing platform that you can put audio, video, images, embed stuff from different websites, schedule, engage with the community, have comments, and then share it to its own social media as well as to the broader social media. Now Twitter's they're having a pissing contest. Twitter's blocking links. So what do? They give you images to share on Twitter to kind of get around that.